Hello again. So, our next problem states that the radius of a cylinder is 2/3 its height. So, let's write that out as an expression. The radius is equal to 2/3 of the height of a cylinder. Now, this also implies that the height is equal to 3/2 of the radius by some simple mathematics. And we want to find the total surface area if the volume is equal to 96 pi. Well, volume we know is pi r squared times the height. That must be equal to 96 pi. So that's just the formula for volume. Now, if we replace the height with our term for the radius, so we would get pi r squared times, and height is equivalent to 3/2 r, and that must be equal to 96 pi. So let's think this out. Dividing by pi on both sides will cancel out both of those terms. R times r squared is r to the third. So we have 3/2 r to the third equals 96. So I can divide by 3 on both sides of that equation, and I'd be left with 1/2 r to the third equals 32 divided by 3, 96 divided by 3, yep. And then multiply by 2 on both sides to get r to the third equals 64. So what must r be equal to? Well, 64 reminds me of 8 squared, which 8 can be expressed as multiples of 2. So specifically, if 8 squared is 64, well then, can I come up with a way to sort of represent this? This is 8 squared. R to the third, well, we know, in fact, that 8 itself is 2 to the third power. So I can rewrite all this as 2 to the third power squared. And it ends up being, this is going to kind of be a little weird, but we can also think of this as 2 to the second power raised to the third power, because that would get us 2 squared is 4, 4 to the third power is the same as 64. That way, if we take the cube root on both sides, we will get that r is equal to 2 squared, which is 4. So our radius is 4. Plugging that into our formula, we can solve for height. So 3/2 of the radius, which is 4, is equal to height. Now, 4 divided by 2 is 2 times 3 is 6, so we end up getting that our height is equal to 6. So we know what the radius is, we know what the height is. Now we should be able to find the total surface area. So surface area is equal to that lateral area. Now the lateral area was, we discovered, 2 pi r h, and then plus the two bases of the cylinder, 2 times pi r squared. So just fill in the variables. We have 2 pi 4 and 6 plus 2 pi 4 squared. Now let's start multiplying this out. So 4 times 6 is 24. 24 times 2 is 48. So we have 48 pi. And 2 times 4 squared, well, that's 16. And 16 times 16 times 2, that's 32 pi. So we can combine our terms. 40 and 30 is 70, plus the 10, we get 80 pi. So our surface area ends up being 80 pi. So the trick to this problem is just taking the information it gives you and breaking it down into things you know. It tells you about the volume, it tells you the radius in terms of the height. Solve for what you know in surface area. You need to find the radius and the height, so try to find both of them. And as long as you keep your steps organized and you know what you're doing, the problem shouldn't be too bad.